get one thing straight. I am not a physicist. I have no university degree in astrophysics. I have no, I don't know, this is my inference of knowledge that I've obtained reading a couple of books and doing some surfing on the internet, and just me doing some thinking about it. So, the Big Bang. I've mentioned in some of my other videos that I never really grasped that concept. You know, the fact that something starts out in a complete vacuum and then it just explodes, and it's still expanding today. So this is trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of years. You know, it's amazing just how, massive a scale we're talking about when we talk about the Big Bang. But, I don't know. A couple months ago, or maybe a year ago, I was looking at, how the Big Bang worked, and despite the fact that it made sense, and, all the scientists like Stephen Hawking, all of them agreed with it, something about it just seemed to be lacking somehow. Anyone out there can say whatever they'd like about it, and I'm sure, if I take physics next year or take physics in university or something like that, I'm sure that I'll learn exactly how the Big Bang works. But for right now, what my teenage mind has been able to pick up and infer, this is another way that the universe could, keyword in the sentence is could have started. The other thing that my theory allows for that the Big Bang does not is the Big Bang basically indicates that, or infers, that all the matter, all the space, all the time, everything that composes everything that we know was all compressed, and it just seemed to explode. That's what I know what it is. That's my extent of knowledge about the Big Bang. My theory allows for continuous production of matter. And since hydrogen is the smallest, or is the smallest atom on the periodic table, it would explain why there is so much of it. So, space is a vacuum. If you take an air compressor and hook it up to, an airtight box and try sucking all the air out of it, it'll completely destroy that box. But if that box was made out of steel, that might be the only, that vacuum that you'd create inside with the air compressor would not compare to the vacuum that there is in space. And I believe that creates a kind of energy. When Albert Einstein came up with E equals mc squared, at essence it means that matter can become energy, and energy can become matter. And that's what the whole process of nuclear fission is about. That's how when you collide two atoms together, bang, they explode, they create huge amounts of energy potentially. It's amazing just how much energy they say you can find in the tiniest speck of matter. It's unbelievable. But I believe that vacuum that was created, this is before the so-called Big Bang or whatever. So before any of that happened, there's just a vacuum. I don't know exactly the concept of space-time, but I'm going to say before time. There is a vacuum stronger than anything, and that creates a kind of energy, almost a kind of kinetic energy. And despite the fact that there's no time, eventually what that energy, what I believe did, was it started to concentrate, almost like I don't know, the best analogy I can think of is oil, floating on top of water in a plastic container. The oil and the container are both made out of oil, so what happens is they start to clot together. And when they're clotting together, it concentrates. And so I believe that that was how the first ever atom was created. And it was a hydrogen atom. Or maybe it was half an atom. Who knows? There might be a way to make that, there might have been a way that that happened. And over the equivalent of what we would call trillions and trillions of years later, this starts happening on a much more rapid scale. The atoms have mass. They start to clot together. Eventually, what happens is, since it's a complete vacuum, there's absolutely no resistance, hydrogen atoms start moving at the speed of light, and they start colliding with other atoms, and they start to create little suns, which creates an ever-increasing vacuum. And this ever-increasing force that's just pulling itself down on top of each other, it's just pulling with insane force. The same concept was used in World War II to flush the Japanese out of their caves. Light a fire at the entrance of the cave, it sucks all the oxygen out. That exact same principle is used to just pull, and it creates more energy, and that energy becomes matter. At one point, this takes, trillions and trillions and trillions of years. And then over time you start having different kinds of atoms. Suddenly now you have helium and, lithium. The atoms start getting bigger and bigger and denser and denser. And then, like atoms start to clot to each other, they start to migrate towards each other. And it gets, it starts to build up on a massive scale. And as all of this is happening, it starts to create the universe. So what my theory allows that the Big Bang does not is that now you've got so many suns out there, and each of them is pulling harder, trying to create a vacuum, sucking in all of the hydrogen and helium it can possibly get. And then, obviously the heat inside of it starts to create a vortex, and it creates magnetic energy and electric energy. And so that's used to create different kinds of energy. I believe that magnetism and electricity have something to do with gravity, too, but I can't prove it. In fact, I can't prove anything that I'm saying right now, but I hope one day somebody will. Anyway, whether you agree with this or not, it is a completely different way to look at the universe, and for all anybody knows out there, it's how the universe started. So let me know what you guys think, and if you have any theories that are similar, don't be afraid to come forward with them. It's good to unleash your imagination, even if it's wrong.